since our last video last week, we're still getting some of this really nice weather during the day, but over the last few nights, it's actually been getting into some really freezing temperatures. So I've been getting out every day to check on our broccoli that we planted last week. So the other day I did go out and pick up some plastic so that we can cover these guys up overnight, ensure that they stay somewhat protected, but they seem to be doing all right. Everybody's still looking alive and all right, even though, as you can see here, that soil is pretty much solid right now. But as the afternoon sun is starting to get to some of these here, they're starting to warm up a little bit. And over the next couple of nights, it's going to start getting back into the upper 30s overnight, and they'll get to growing really good here real soon. Welcome everybody to another garden journal here on The Urban Gardener. I'm Enoch, and I'm really glad that you've joined with me this week. Even though the weather is really beautiful outside during the daytime right now, as I just mentioned with all the broccoli, our soil is frozen solid. So we're not gonna be able to do much here outdoors this week, but I do have plenty of things that need to be done indoors. One of the big ones though is transplanting our peppers. So that's what we'll do this week, is transplant our peppers. And let's go ahead and sow out some of those tomato seeds too. So yeah, we've got a lot of really great pepper starts that have come up out of those seeds that we sowed out a couple weeks back. Just a lot of really great varieties here, and the starts are just looking wonderful. One of the cool things I really love about peppers, and I say this year after year, is that they just have so much awesome variety in different ways that they grow depending on the variety, and you can really see that here. It's kind of evident in their growth patterns. As you can see, we've got some that are just bursting out, just ready and wanting to get transplanted out into the next stage there. And then we've got some that are just kind of popping up and just kind of getting started right now. So it's kind of interesting how all these kind of just grow. Like you can see with these varieties here too, we've got some that grow kind of really in a more stockier type of fashion too. And then some that just kind of shoot right up and grow a little bit taller. So we've got a lot of really great varieties here that we're going to choose from in order to move into the next stage of growth, which I'll just show you here in just a little bit here as we get moving along. We're going to have to choose which ones that we want to move on here. So that's kind of the hardest part when we get down to it. We've grown all these beautiful starts, but now I've only got so much space in the garden. One of the reasons why I do grow so many starts is so that I have plenty to choose from. And I want to be able to have that variety to choose from so I can pick the strongest starts, the best ones that I like, you know, and then we move those on into the next stage. So ultimately we've got 48 spaces for all of these starts. What do we got? 72 and 72. That's 144. I'm sure we're right around 95% germination, so that we've got, you know, we've got most of those 144. There are only a few different spots here that didn't germinate for us. So we've got a bunch of different wonderful plants here that we're going to have to break down into those 48 different spots that we have as they move on to the next stage into these red solo cups. Now these red solo cups is what I use for them before they go out into the garden. We've still got a couple of months left that they're going to have to stay indoors under lights. So I have another space in the living room and a place for them where we can put them in these red solo cups, and they'll stay under the lights there and continue to grow until we get more closer to our last frost date, and then they can go out into the garden as the weather's all warm and ready for them. And then at that point they're going to have to go through a hardening off process too, in order to get used to all that sunlight from all of the indoor light that they've been in. So we'll go through all of that process as we get to that too as well, but that'll be what's coming up for them after they move into this next stage, which is these red solo cups here. A method I learned from King Star. King Star's a really great guy who has a really awesome channel and shows a lot of different hydroponics and microgreens and really specializes in peppers. He's grown out his own varieties of peppers too, which are really popular in the pepper growing community. We do have a few varieties of his growing too this year that I'll be showing you a lot more of as we get going into the growing season. So down in the description below, check out King Star's channel. I really appreciate all that he does for us here on the Urban Gardener, and really appreciate this method that we learned years ago. It's been so great. I use it every year. It's just a double cup method so that we can be feeding our pepper plants from below, which is kind of what they'll do as they move into the 5-gallon water wicking buckets later on in the season. Most of these will kind of go in there and other places of the garden as well, but a lot of them are going to be in those containers, and those will be kind of watering from below as well too, which I think is probably one of the better methods if you can do that, you know, for your plants. So we've got the solo cups, and again, it's a 2-stage method, and on the bottom we've got little slits that are cut into the bottom of them here, and that is where the roots will grow out and catch and access the water from below in the second cup. Again, similar to our 5-gallon water wicking buckets. So what I got to do now is I got to pick through here. Again, so many great varieties. We've got to break it down and find our best ones. We'll start transplanting them into these solo cups here, and then we'll move them on into the next stage, which is in a place over in the living room where they get to just kind of sit under some lights for the next couple of months and continue on growing. So all right, let's dig in and get those peppers all transplanted. What we're using here is just a basic potting mix that I got at a discount at one of my local garden centers. And then I also added some cocoa coir to it that I had left over to kind of fluff it up just a little bit more. I think it's going to work out really nice for our transplants. And remember, a couple of weeks ago when we were sowing out all of our seeds, instead of writing out onto each one of these what our varieties were, so we set up this number chart. Each one of those numbers corresponds to a variety in our seed tray. And when we transplant these out, what we'll do is we'll write the number for each of the varieties onto one of these craft sticks, and we'll put that into our solo cup so that we can keep identifying our varieties on our simple list instead of having to write out each variety on each of these sticks in order to keep track of what we got. And later on in the season, what we'll do when we're transplanting these starts out into the garden, we'll just take the craft stick, place it right along with the plant so that we'll be able to continue to identify it as it continues to grow throughout the season. So I'm just going to take some of our soil, fill up our cup, and kind of leave a nice little hole in the center there for our start to go into. Got our cup filled up. Let's select one of our peppers. First ones that we had was Lesia, number 1. That's one of these first rows here. In truth, I really like this top start right up here, so let's get that one. Now look at that root system. Perfect. Just what we want. Just what we want. Set that right in there. Push that soil right around the start. Now we're just going to kind of lightly kind of pack it in there. And that's going to get it down about, looks like about a ½ inch or more right there below the line. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more soil right around the top there. Because you can bury a pepper just a little bit deeper. It's not quite like tomatoes where they'll grow all over the whole stem. But pepper plants will put out root nodes about the first inch or so of the plant, so you can always bury it just a little bit deeper. All right, here we go. We got one all transplanted there. Now we just got 47 more to go. So a couple years back, I was looking for a way to keep all of these peppers together up under our lights here. I came up with this idea here, plywood, and we drilled 3-inch holes. Now originally I made a set with 5 by 5, and they were just a bit too close together for these plants. As they got bigger, they started crowding each other, so we went down to 4 by 4, which seems to work out really good. So we'll only probably get about that big before we take them out into the garden. Now up under this here we have some casters so that they can roll around. Up under our light system here, and just here we got just kind of this simple kind of shop kind of light LEDs here. They provide a pretty good amount of light for the plants, and it's pretty sufficient as they're just indoors for the next few weeks before they go outdoors. We also use these compact fluorescents. This is about a 1,000 watt equivalent here, and we've got about 4 or 5 of these up above us here for all of our house plants as well. So those lights will also be supplementing these LED lights. And everybody should be doing good here as we'll fill all of this out here. We'll catch up with these plants in a couple more weeks. So now that we've got all of our peppers set up in their new space, it's time to get our tomatoes started. And we'll just all right, it seems that we've just experienced a little bit of technical difficulty there. As I was filming, the battery of the microphone went out as we were getting into talking about sowing out all of our tomato seeds. We've got a lot of really great varieties of tomatoes that we're going to be growing this season in the garden, and we'll have to kind of salvage that footage somehow here in just a minute. But what I want to do is go over the different varieties of tomatoes that we're going to be growing in the garden this season. We're going to try a few different varieties that we've already grown year after year, and then a couple of varieties that are new. And we're going to kind of do a little theme with the main varieties that we're going to grow this season. So what we're going to do is grow a variety called Dad's Sunset. Dad's Sunset is this really great yellow orange tomato, and it grows these really nice sized tomatoes that did really well for me last season. It was actually one of the few tomatoes that actually did really well for me last season. It wasn't the best season last year for me for tomatoes, for sure, but Dad's Sunset was great. Another one too I really liked was this little micro tomato called Orange Hat. And Orange Hat grows these little orange cherry tomatoes on this little micro plant, and grows a nice amount of tomatoes too. So we're going to grow out a bunch of those, and I got a little place I want to kind of set them in the garden and grow some of those out again. They were really good, really nice little plants. And we're also going to grow another one we grew last year, which I thought was pretty decent. I've grown it in years before. And of course, you know, we've got to represent our home state here too. So we're going to grow the Oregon Spring again for just a general tomato that we're going to use. And then another orange variety I really like, and I kind of like those orange varieties, but it's one called Orange Kentucky. Now, we grew Orange Kentucky a couple of seasons ago, so I wanted to get another orange one to kind of compare it with the Dad's Sunset too. So we'll have the Orange Kentucky growing, and then we're going to try out a new variety called Early Red Chief. It looked like a nice red slicer. I just wanted to kind of introduce a new kind of variety into the garden for that kind of variety. And then what we're going to do is kind of our theme for tomatoes this year is I wanted to grow out a few different varieties of dark tomatoes. So everybody's familiar with the Cherokee Purple. So we're going to grow a Cherokee Purple. We're also going to grow the Black Crim. And then there's a really, really dark one called Black Beauty. I'm really excited about growing too. So that one's going to be really cool, along with another variety that we've grown a couple of times over the last few seasons, one called True Black Brandywine. And then we're also going to grow one that I've got coming in the mail. I'm still waiting on here in the next day or two, and we'll add it to the tomatoes that we've already sown out today, but it's called a Black Tulsa. So that one's going to be really nice. So we've got a really good range of dark tomatoes that we're going to grow out, and then we'll kind of do a taste test maybe later in the season and check out how they all did and how they all taste. And so that's going to be kind of really cool. Something a little bit different than just kind of growing a few different varieties that I've done. And then plus we also have one that I always like to mention, and I don't even have to sow them out, is my Prax cherry tomatoes that grow in our back patio area. They have an area in the garden there where they just volunteer up for us every single year. So those will probably be out as well too, as far as another variety we'll have growing in the garden. So we've got all of our tomatoes sown out, even though we kind of, well, let's just say we didn't lose the footage. We're just gonna have to chop it up a little bit and add a little bit of music to it. So there we are. We've got our tomatoes all sown out now. We've got our peppers put into the other room, going on to their next stage. So they'll be gearing up here over the next couple of weeks to get ready to go out into our gardens. But we also have a lot of other things that we're going to get sowing outdoors in the next week or two. So look forward to some of those things coming up in our upcoming garden journals, as well as be a lookout for this Tuesday for another video on Garden Invitational with Johnny Appleseed Organic. We're also gearing up there to get growing a bunch of different things for all of those great categories that we got to compete in. So I'm really excited about all of that. I'm really excited about being able to share it all with you. So down there, hit that subscribe button, in fact, hit the bell notification so you can be notified of all of our upcoming videos here on the Urban Gardener. I'll see you on our next one. Nights, it's a beautiful day out, but our but our soil is frozen solid. Oh my gosh, I messed that up. All right. I learned, no, I wasn't even really, actually, that was just kind of a practice go. That was a practice go out of these. But we'll get that done. We'll get these selected through, moved on to our next stage where get these pepper transplants, peppers transplanted. All right, let's dig in and get these pepper transplants, all pepper starts transplanted. Good to go. Let's get this wrapped up, man. Come on, we ain't got much time here. It really is quite something around here, actually. Oh boy. Okay, let's see here. Here we go.